Hi there. In this business topic video, we're going to introduce and explain and briefly illustrate a really important model for marketing and business strategy. The model is called the Ansoff Matrix. The Ansoff Matrix is incredibly popular and well covered on business courses because it's a theoretical model, but really easy to understand and apply to such a variety of business situations. What it's essentially about is helping a business determine the right growth strategy. A strategy in terms of the products it chooses to sell and the markets in which it chooses to compete. So as you draw your grid and look at the four options which we're going to go through briefly, it's important to remember that this is all about choice. Business strategy is all about choice. So the two dimensions I mentioned, products and markets, but look at the yellow lines or the yellow arrows there, because what's often forgotten about the Ansoff Matrix is that as you move from the top left-hand corner, the choices a business makes in terms of its growth strategy usually involve increasing degrees of risk. So that as you move towards the bottom right-hand corner of the grid, in theory, the choices you make involve the greatest risk. So we'll come back to that as we look at the four elements of the Ansoff Matrix. The first of them is called market penetration. This is where the business sells existing products to existing markets. The second is called product development. This is where the business increases the risk somewhat by introducing new products, but trying to sell them to existing markets and customers. The third part of the Ansoff Matrix is called market development. This is where the business decides to use its existing products, but tries to find new customers for them in new markets. And lastly, the famous fourth part of the grid, the bottom right, which in theory is the riskiest of the four options, is called diversification, where a business tries to sell new products into new markets. And that's why, looking at the yellow arrows of risk, diversification is usually identified as the riskiest of the four options in the Ansoff Matrix. Before we look at each of those four things just briefly, it's also worth remembering that this model of market choice, market growth strategy, is not an either-or model. A business doesn't just decide to adopt a strategy of market development and therefore it's not able to adopt a product development strategy. A business can do all four of these things if it wishes. This is about assessing the relative risk of those choices. So let's look very briefly at market penetration, explain what it is, and look at a couple of examples. So we've mentioned this is top left of the matrix, selling existing products into existing markets. And really this should be the safety first core strategy, shouldn't it, for most businesses? Can we sell as many products as possible from our existing product range to both our existing customers and also customers who share the same needs and wants as our existing customers? We're selling to a well-defined and well-understood customer base. And strategically, the aim of a market penetration strategy is usually to maximize and ideally increase the market share of the business. Lots of different ways of doing that, for example, by opening new locations, by adding to, widening the range of the product services that form the existing portfolio. Also, can you find ways of getting existing customers to simply buy more? Because it's often said that the best customers of a business are your loyal existing customers. You just need to ask them to buy more, and they often will. So we can see, I'm sure you've come across lots of examples of market penetration strategies. Essentially, any example where a business is trying to build its existing market share in an existing market with existing products. So two on the screen there, great examples. And often market penetration strategies are associated with this concept called organic growth. Aldi trying to build its market share of the UK discount grocery market by opening as many similar stores in suitable locations around the UK. And of course, Domino's Pizza, the classic organic growth strategy, the classic market penetration strategy, aiming to have over 2,000 outlets in the UK. And a wonderful example too of how to use technological change such as e-commerce to support a market penetration strategy. Now, is market penetration the right strategy for a business? Well, of course, you can see why it's the lowest risk, because in theory, the business is selling to markets and customers that it knows really well. It should have some really good insights into what customers need and want. It should understand what competitors are doing. It's unlikely to have to spend a huge amount on new product development and market research. It should really know exactly what it's doing in that market. But the question, as always with market penetration, is that market growing fast enough in order for the business to achieve its growth objectives? Is something different required in order to achieve the objectives? So could it be product development? Product development is the strategy where we are selling into our existing markets, target customers, but we're trying to introduce something new for them. We're trying to broaden our product range by researching, developing and introducing and launching new products to our core target audience. Lots and lots of examples of how businesses try to grow using new product development. And for example, we've seen Dyson. Dyson have moved very quickly and invested very heavily, moving away from their traditional vacuum cleaner to robotic vacuum cleaners, essentially targeting the same consumer, but after having invested massively in product development. And brand extensions, product extensions, are a great example of the Ansoff Matrix, the product development strategy in action. Is this the right strategy for a business? Well, again, it's often said that product development is the natural ally of market penetration. If you can sell existing products to existing customers and also keep those customers happy by offering new variations and new experiences, new services, then it can add significantly to your revenues and to your profit. Of course, the key is market research. It's understanding what those new products need to be, responding to changing customer needs and tastes and wants, and ideally allying innovation, investment in innovation and product development with your existing customer base, who should be responsive to innovative products. It's often said, though, that for new product development, the most important thing is to be first to market, to gain the first mover advantages before your competition copy your idea and get to your own customers. Now, market development is moving now down to the bottom left-hand side of the grid. This is where the business seeks to sell its existing products, but not to existing customers. They're looking to expand into new markets, new customers, as well as potentially new geographical markets. So market development can be one or more of these strategies. It could be, for example, trying to expand into international markets by extending the geographical reach of the sales. Emerging markets being a great example of that. So exporting to the faster growing economies like China and Brazil. But market development can also be finding new customers and a different customer base by using new distribution channels. So, for example, it may well be that through e-commerce, you're able to access quite a different type of customer base who have different needs and wants, but maybe they still want your existing product. And of course, it could be that you're simply trying to reach out to a different market segment from your traditional customer base, perhaps moving up market from a discount position to trying to attract or succeed in a premium market. So lots of examples of market development strategies, and of course, as these involve more risk, not all of them have been successful. I'm a big fan of Starbucks as a great case study of market development. Of course, it's expanding globally, but its success in China, well documented in many reviews and articles, but not every multinational has succeeded in China. In fact, many have failed. Starbucks is a classic example of a successful market development strategy by taking the existing Starbucks offer and tweaking it slightly. It's a process called localization in order to succeed in a new market. But it can go all disastrously wrong. One of the best examples is Tesco's attempt to enter the US market with its grocery offer, which it branded Fresh and Easy. And as it turned out, that was a disaster for Tesco shareholders because Tesco simply misunderstood the needs and wants of the grocery supermarket customer in the US market. So market development is an interesting strategy, and of course the key to it is to understand the logic, the strategic logic for pursuing it. For example, is it simply because your existing markets are slow growth, mature, maybe even declining in value, and you're forced into seeking new markets? Or is it a systematic attempt to enter much faster growing international markets, which is a perfectly rational strategy for a business that has ambitions to be a multinational business? The key thing to remember, though, is you're trying to sell existing products. So the question mark for this strategy is usually around whether that product meets the needs and wants of the customers in the target market. And we see lots of examples of where businesses believe they can export successfully, but actually their product is not what's required by the target market. Which brings us on briefly, and we're only going to touch on this briefly because we'll do this in a separate video, to the strategy called diversification, which, as we remember from the grid, is bottom right, selling new products into new markets. And if you remember the yellow arrows of risk, this should be the highest risk strategy. Lots of examples out there of businesses, though, that are highly diversified and highly successful. So, as we'll see in a later video, it's not necessarily the case that the strategy of diversification is high risk and therefore bound to be a failure. Alphabet is perhaps one of the best examples of a highly diversified and successful business. If you've not come across it before, not many have, but it owns, amongst other things, Google, who you definitely will have heard of. But Alphabet is involved in all kinds of different industries and sectors. Highly diversified, as is Samsung. Samsung, another of the world's most diversified groups of businesses, involved in everything from smartphones, smart televisions, to life insurance, and shipbuilding. However, there are lots of examples, of course, of where businesses trying to sell new products into new markets have come really badly unstuck. And just a couple on the screen there, just to give you a flavour of some of the things we'll look at in our video on diversification. Friends Reunited, the social network, which was bought by ITV for 175 million. A disastrous attempt by ITV to move into a new market with a new product. And it cost the shareholders about 150 million when they finally sold it. And similarly, HMV thought it could diversify into running live music venues, and it paid £40 million for the rights to own a whole series of live music venues, and very quickly realised it knew nothing about running them and had to leave the market very soon. So, as we'll see in a later video, the diversification strategy can be hugely successful, but Ansoff Matrix will suggest that it is inherently risky. And of course, the obvious reasons for this are that you're dealing with new products and trying to target them to customers who you don't know well. And so therefore, you've got to accept that diversification includes an element of risk. The extent of the risk depends on to what extent the new markets and products are significantly different from your existing operations. So there we are, there's the Ansoff Matrix. It's a really useful model to get to grips with, but the most important thing is to understand the 4 options and to also appreciate that as you start to move from the top left to the bottom right, the element of risk increases, and to understand why that happens. So this has been a short business topic video on the Ansoff Matrix.